Traffic, Omaha 62, Bra 166, 10, 3000.
Hey, welcome back to the channel. This is Ronan here, and after hemming and hawing, I finally got my hands on Helldivers 2, and man, am I glad I did. This game is great. It's not usually what I go for. I'm not usually a fan of third-person games, but I did enjoy GTA and Red Dead Redemption series, so I figured why not give this a go. And it's a ton of fun. I'm only about 7.5 hours into it or so, but already it's becoming a jewel in my collection of games I currently play. Now, a friend of mine suggested I give it a try, so I went for it, and at $40, it's hardly breaking the bank like a AAA or even AA title. Those are typically around $60 to $90, depending on additions and add-ons. I didn't know of the issues, which I'll get to later, when I first jumped into the game and got through the tutorial, and not 5 minutes in, I was hooked. Thoroughly impressed. There's a lot of humor. I love that they threw it in, like the satirizing of human politics, kind of in the same vein of Paul Verhoeven's Starship Troopers, which, speaking of, it's a very similar concept to Starship Troopers, the film, not the novel. There's a big difference there. The politics, the in-your-face nationalism, or I guess maybe planetism, since you're fighting on behalf of Super Earth, and even the enemies, they come out and say, are bugs. So, jumping into the game, you finish the tutorial, and it's time to name your ship and get out there and start spreading democracy to the galaxy. Once you play the game, you'll understand the joke that's lying there. I will come out and say this right away, the game does not hold your hand. There are a lot of things you really have to feel around in the dark for to figure out. For instance, I took on a mission with a random partner, and for the first 10 or so minutes of the mission, we had no idea what we were doing. I mean, like, we knew the objective. It said, escort facility staff safely to evacuation shuttle. But where, how, it wasn't until a while we realized that you have to hit a button and it opens a door to a building and they come out and they have to go into another building and you have to keep them alive in the interim. Pretty straightforward, but the game doesn't really tell you that. You kind of have to figure it out. Now, normally that would be a frustration that kind of hurts the game's core mechanic, but it doesn't here. It feels like it sends you out into the wilderness to fend for yourself, and I just really like the kind of brutal honesty that a lot of games nowadays lack. I feel like there's a lot of hand-holding. Kind of says, here you go, get out there and do your job, and it's not going to tell you exactly how to do your job, and I loved every minute of it. The missions are pretty simple in concept. You select an area from orbit, and you have objectives ranging from attack to defend, depending on what the overall objective, which I'll get to in a minute. Most missions are relatively decent. They're fast-paced, but they're only about 10 to 30 minutes each, depending on what your objectives are and the type of mission. So they do have like a time to complete counter, but it really leaves it open-ended. But so zooming out, the whole game is set up as like a persistent campaign. Currently, it's on two fronts. One side is the fight against the Terminids, aka the bugs, and the other is against the automatons, a malicious droid army. There is talk that there are more factions coming soon, so and the map shows that it's open for that. So for the time being, it's just these two factions, and you feel like that there's, this really cool persistent gameplay mechanic where you're contributing to the overall war effort. Now, there are different sectors, and in each sector there are planets, and each planet has various objectives depending on if you're on the offensive or the defensive posture for that planet, defending against their attacks or attacking them to take over territory. And overall, it appears to be kind of set up as this constant struggle to keep the enemy at bay, which is a really cool setup, and it does feel like every contribution you make is making a difference, which I love. Now, I was able to jump in with some fellow veteran gamers, and they were quite a few levels higher than my piddly level 4 yesterday, but nevertheless, they taught me a bunch more about the game, the objectives, different things I would need to work my way towards. But pretty much you jump in, the game starts you off with a typical rifle, pistol, and standard issue HE hand grenades. It doesn't really have a level up weapon mechanic, but the starter rifle is pretty good even as you get higher up in levels. And of course, you can also call in special weapons like the machine gun, the auto cannon, which is a total beast. And of course, once I unlocked the recoilless rifle, I was shooting down dropships like it was nothing. There are tons of things to unlock, from cosmetic things like newer armor and helmets, and there are 3 classes of armor: light, medium, and heavy, each with their own pluses and minuses. I won't go into detail. You can kind of figure it out. Lighter armor, you move faster; heavy armor, you move slower, but you have more protection, etc. You can also unlock new primary weapons, the weapons you deploy into battle with, new special weapons like the ones I mentioned earlier, and then there's your supports, the call-ins like the airstrikes and orbital attacks, which can be quite devastating. But you have to be careful because they don't discriminate and they will obliterate you if you get too close to when they come in. So make sure you and your squad are paying attention and communicating. Now, with the squad thing, yes, it's co-op. There is no PvP. It is all PvE. And you can deploy with up to 4 other players. It's very helpful to work and communicate together. Can you play solo? Yes. I played a few rounds solo, and some missions are fine, like the Seek and Destroy objective missions, where I had to take out 2 fuel depots and a ammo supply base. They're pretty challenging, but they're not impossible. You can do it on your own. Now, that escort mission I was talking about earlier, I tried that one on my own, and it was really hard. Almost impossible. We did some of the defense missions, the group of us, and I got a ton of XP because we went on a harder difficulty, and it gives you like 150% XP boost. And that was pretty cool. It was a lot easier because we had some really high level support options like mortars and orbital attacks that were awesome. So that part is a ton of fun. Now the negative, I have to address the elephant in the room. And this is where all the good comes with a very large but. Arrowhead, the developer, did a great job with this title. I can't stress that enough. But the popularity exceeded what anyone was expected. And the servers were, let's just say the servers are currently capped at 450,000 players, and they're still having issues. It sounds like a lot because it is a lot. I didn't experience these problems the first go around when I got on. I bought the game and it let me go straight in, do the tutorial straight into the game, and I had no issues. Then after logging out and trying to get, for a little while, and then coming back and trying to get back on, there was a queue that was kind of non-existent that it doesn't show you. And it doesn't tell you you're in the queue, but it just says connecting and failure to connect, and then you have problems. The queue there was about 20 minutes for me. I just sat there at the introduction screen, and then all of a sudden the game loaded right in. So they are having a lot of server issues, and according to the devs, it is a big headache. They are working on it. I saw, if you follow them on X, formerly Twitter, they've been pretty vocal and apologetic about, trying to fix this issue. And this is where kind of that patience that a lot of gamers don't have really will be beneficial. They are working on it, but apparently some of the frustration has led people to become angry, laying blame on the devs, and quitting and asking for refunds. And I understand this, but considering they only had anticipated 45,000 players and they got 10 times that, I don't know if this really is chalked up to bad planning. It's impossible to anticipate. Like, how do you anticipate how successful a game's going to be? There's examples more recently where games, were hugely anticipated and turned out to be a massive letdown. I won't name names, but let's just say it's a pirate game. I really can't blame the devs. And I think this giant mass of a player base is a good thing. Sure, they could have, jumped on it once they realized how successful it was. I don't know. I'm not a network person. I'm not a developer. I don't know what they could have done differently other than anticipate a much bigger release, which how do you predict that? So all in all, they're doing the best they can. So I say give them the benefit of the doubt and let them work through it. I love that this is blown up pretty much overnight and has become a huge success. It's one of the most fun games I've played, but I will caution it's got a bit of a learning curve, and it's not the best for those solo players. If you're looking for a good solo experience, it's going to be a bit of a slog. Even with randomly matched people, it's still fun, but really it's the most fun with a squad comprised of people who communicate and work well together. Communication's key because you can actually, tell people, hey, I'm dropping this in or bringing that up or whatever. So yeah, complete the objectives by coordinating your efforts. It's a lot easier and a lot more fun. So despite the server issues, I still rate this a 9 out of 10. I say 9 instead of the full 10 because I'm a bit more of a solo player myself and I like games that have that single player aspect. This doesn't have a campaign or single player thing. It's 100% multiplayer. Even if you can go about it alone if you choose, it's still at its core a co-op multiplayer. And that's not what they weren't looking to do a campaign or single player, so I'll cut them some slack, give it a solid 9. It's a great game, it's a lot of fun, and it's definitely a terrific experience despite the server issues, which I'm confident will be fixed as soon as possible. So, if you haven't yet and you were kind of on the fence on getting Helldivers 2, I recommend it. I think it's fun. It's great. Third person, run and gun action, and it's a ton of fun. I'm having a lot of fun enjoying it. So that's my review. And as always, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys on the next one.